Thank you very much. Good afternoon, colleagues. It's really lovely to be with you this afternoon. My name is Mary Thompson. I'm one of the STEM Education Officers in Education Scotland, and I'm joined by colleagues Mark Irwin and Ian Menzies and Lynn Yenica this afternoon, together with a range of speakers from across Scotland. So really delighted that you've given up your time this afternoon to think about outdoor learning and yearning for outdoor learning, building back better. The session this afternoon is being recorded, so it will be available to you after the event so that you can share it with colleagues or indeed revisit some of the content yourself. Just a kind of wee word from me, if you wouldn't mind taking a moment or two to mute your microphones and to turn off your cameras, that will really help protect the bandwidth and for our speakers this afternoon. If you require a little bit of extra support or accessible arrangements, there are live captions and they can be turned on for this afternoon's sessions following the instructions on the screen. I don't promise that my accent will come across beautifully, but anyway, here's hoping that you're able to catch the flow of things. So if you haven't had a chance to, please introduce yourself into the chat pane. We'd love to know where you're from, where we're reaching in Scotland. And also, if you wouldn't mind adding in 3 words that immediately spring to mind when you think of outdoor learning, that would be really great, and we can revisit these throughout the session. So this afternoon, we're going to be hearing from 3 fabulous practitioners from across Scotland. We'll have again about 10 minutes for each practitioner to share. So we've got Gwyneth Quinn, you can see on screen at the moment, from East Ayrshire, and joined by a colleague, Caroline McFarlane. And then we're moving to the north in Highlands and hearing from Natalie White. And then travelling back down to the Central Belt, and we're going to be hearing about from Kate Samuel from Hindland Secondary in Glasgow. So, and then we'll draw that together and have an opportunity for us to reflect on what we've heard and think about how that impacts what we're doing, what you're doing in taking learners outdoors and experiencing the wonderful world of Scotland that we have. So without further ado from me, thanks folks for popping into the chat where you're from and your 3 words, that'd be much appreciated. We're going to move forward now. We're going to pass on to Gwyneth and to Carolyn, and we're going to hear round about the practice throughout lockdown and the plans moving forward for outdoor learning in the early years. So Gwyneth, I'm going to pass over to you now, and thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks, Mary, and thank you everybody for joining us this afternoon. Carolyn and I are going to share our progress at developing an early level approach to outdoor learning in East Ayrshire Council. And we're going to explain how we've maintained some of our developments throughout lockdown. We're going to share a short video outlining how Muirkirk ECC and Primary have developed greater cohesiveness in their approach to outdoor learning at early level. And this picture you can see shows the P1 class on their weekly visit to the plantation. It's going to be a whistle-stop tour, but please ask any questions in the chat and we'll try and respond to these as we go along. We'll also put our email addresses in the chat for you if you want to get in touch with us afterwards. So we're going to start by giving you a wee bit of background in terms of the excellence in outdoor learning across East Ayrshire. We're then going to go on to explain some of the key features of the early level approach. We're going to share the short video exemplifying the excellent practice at Muirkirk, and then we're going to finish up by summarising our next steps. So if you could move to the next slide, please, Mary.
Thanks. I'm Carolyn from the Learning Outdoors support team. It's a small team led by Willie White. We work across the authority to embed outdoor learning pedagogy in all learning and teaching settings. We work with practitioners, teachers, young people and families. And the team consists of teachers delivering the coach programme in primary, secondary and ASN settings, and partners from the John Muir Award, Duke of Edinburgh Award and the Conservation Volunteers Green Gym project. Thanks, Mary. Next slide.
So developing outdoor play has been a big priority for the early years service. And you can see here an example of one of our revamped outdoor areas at Darvel ECC, and also a practitioner here, also from Darvel, wearing high quality outdoor clothing that we've purchased for all practitioners and teachers. Next slide, please, Mary. We've worked really hard to keep parents informed about how and why we prioritise outdoor play and the benefits of this for children. And this is a page from a leaflet that we developed just after the children returned from the first lockdown. Next slide, please, Maddie. We've also invested in training, and the LOST team have provided the majority of the expertise for this, but we've also tried to really take advantage of opportunities for practitioners to share their skills and expertise. So at our in-service day training session, we had a number of really good examples of this, including Catherine ECC sharing their experience of the first early years residential trip, and Craighead Country Nursery, one of our partner providers, providing a workshop on using tools. Next slide, please, Mary.
Thank you. In 2019, LOST set up a professional learning network for ECC practitioners. At network meetings, LOST team members would lead practical outdoor tasks, which colleagues would quickly put into practice in their own settings. ECC colleagues shared the practice and news. We held meetings in different settings so that we could each get a chance to see and visit the variety of settings in East Ayrshire. But in March 2020, we moved online to meet virtually. And in January 2021, the PLN was renamed the Early Level PLN to encourage teaching staff in primary settings to join us and share and develop their own practice. The Early Level PLN takes a collaborative approach with both LOST and the early years team making short presentations before handing over to the network for contributions, pieces of news and queries from the membership. Connections are being made and the network has survived despite the challenges of the last year and a half, and a community of learners has been created and has been sustained. Next slide, please, Mary.
So this very simplistic rudimentary diagram exemplifies why we're taking an early level approach to developing outdoor play and learning. The red and the green face represent professionals from the early years and primary sectors. So if they're given opportunities to work together and develop a shared pedagogy, represented by the purple face in the diagram, there are benefits for the professionals and of course for the children. How much better for children to have the same approach to outdoor learning in their early years service and in the primary school. Next slide, please, Mary. So in a wee minute, we're going to share a short video with you. And before we do that, I'd just like to really thank again the staff at Muirkirk ECC and Primary for allowing us to use this example. Towards the end of the clip, you're going to hear Anne McLean, the head teacher, and she's giving her advice on how to embed outdoor learning at early level and beyond.
Outdoor learning in the school grounds and in the wider areas nearby is embedded in practice across the early level at Muirkirk Early Childhood Centre and Primary School.
With Primary 1 teacher Mrs. Gale and the early years practitioner Claire, we work closely together and share collaboration with the forward book. We look at the experiences we're going to deliver to the children and what the experiences they're going to deliver in Primary 1, and can they mix it up and share the learning. For the transition side of it, we're going to swap the floor books, so what we do at the Woods, the Primary 1 classroom will get to see it, and what they do in the Primary 1 classroom, that'll come through here, and we're going to put wee comments into the book.
So what we did was we would watch the publication video daily, and then we would get the children's ideas about how to take that forward. So it was planning in the moment rather than pre-planning. And then we recorded this in a floor book. It was a great way for the children to transition from the ECC into Primary 1. It gave them the chance to sort of relax into school, and it was more about what they wanted to do and how to take their learning forward. Also, the benefits of going outside meant that the kids felt a bit freer, and it made them a bit more confident as well.
And it's about supporting your staff and giving staff time to develop their skills and to try things. You know, and if it doesn't work, then fine. If it doesn't work, you try something different the next time. Previously, we would quite often shy away. Oh, it's raining today, so we'll not go outdoors. Whereas I think now staff are seeing the benefits of, right, okay, it's raining, let's get the wetsuits on, the welly boots on, and let's go. My primary 1 teachers are taking some advice from the ECC, so there's good sharing of practice across the ECC into primary 1 as well. So my advice is just, you know, jump in there, give it a go, small steps, and go really at the pace of the staff.
Wow! Put it in minutes.
Thanks, Mary. That seemed to work really well.
Okay, our next steps are outlined on this slide. The early level professional network will continue. We're always looking for any new opportunities to collaborate, and particularly to bring early level practitioners and teachers together to support that transitionless approach we're aiming for. We'll continue to empower colleagues so that they'll be able to find approaches appropriate to their settings. Collaboration and support will continue. Our community of learners is looking forward to meeting outdoors in the real world a lot more often in the coming months, with all the benefits that that brings to colleagues as well as to the young people we work with. Thank you very much for coming along today, and please feel free to contact myself or Gwyneth if you have any queries about the work in East Ayrshire. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you, Gwyneth. Thank you, Carolyn, so much for that. And I think I typed into the chat there, you just love hearing the laughter and the joy that children are expressing there as they're experiencing that outdoor learning. It's just something completely memorable and something to build on. So thank you very much. Colleagues joining us on the call, if you've got questions and comments, feel free to pop that into the chat, or indeed reflections about what you've heard from Gwyneth and Carolyn. We'd love to hear that, and I'm sure they would too. We're going to pass now on to a head teacher, Natalie White, who is joining us from the Highlands in Scotland. And Natalie is going to share a little bit round about the kind of practice that she has taken forward in her school, building on previous experience. And I don't want to say too much because I will let Natalie do the talking for herself. But thank you very much for joining us this afternoon, Natalie. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for attending. It's wonderful to see there's such great numbers. It does really show that there is a yearning for outdoor learning, which is wonderful. I'm a head teacher at Bolnaluib and Poole Primaries and Old Bay and Poole Nurseries up in the Highlands in Wester Ross. And yeah, if you want to click on the next slide, I previously worked for Learning Outdoor Support Team. So outdoor learning is very much my passion, and still is, even now I'm a head teacher. So this next statement, if you just want to press click, sorry. Well-designed school grounds that support physical health, emotional well-being, the value of natural play as a means of nurturing resilience, developing interpersonal skills and supporting self-esteem. That was part of the document Vision 2030. It published in 2016, and I don't think any of us recognised or realised quite how important that would be as we moved into 2020 and obviously now the current pandemic and what we're trying to deal with and face. The outdoor space and environment is absolutely the best place to be learning right now, just in terms of what we can do to prevent the spread of COVID, but also just that engaging with our natural space, engaging with the environment. So, and to the next slide, if you don't mind, Natalie. So we've got Why Learn Outdoors, and this was a really great piece of work that we did in Learning Outdoor Support Team in East Ayrshire, but it's still very current. So just to very quickly click over them if you want to bring them. Mrs. Nar, so the mess, the risk, the space, the noise, the artifacts and the authenticity. Those are the real reasons. And I think getting people on board with why they're wanting to do outdoor learning, not just because it's a exercise, I've been told to go outside, but actually why is it that we should go outside? We can make so much more mess. We can teach children about risk. There's so much more space. It's lovely. They can make that noise. Artifacts are real. We're picking things up. We're connecting with them, and it's authentic. It's real world learning. So all of those obviously can be expanded much more. But we've also got then the health benefits. Just some of those things that we know that being in natural green space, for example, is better for our restorative practice. We come back, we can concentrate better when we've had time outside, and there's lots and lots of research around that, and our natural health services has pulled together lots of that as to the health benefits. We've also got those connections to nature, heart, head and hands, picking things up, holding them in our hands, we start to feel them and think, oh, what is this? That's asking those questions. And then from asking those questions, we start to realize we love it. And we see this time and time again. I've noticed it with my wee ones when I'm taking them over the beach now. You know, you pick up some shells, they want to take that shell home with them. They've got a connection to it by the time they've named it and they've labeled it, and they're understanding about what lived in it, and they've got lots of questions about what they can do with it. And it's multi-sensory, so that multi-sensory experience is really, really important. What does it feel like? What does it smell like? What does it touch? You know, just touch everything about it. It becomes a really meaningful experience. And when we think about those experiences that we have as adults, and we've remembered from school, very few of those memories from school will be the ones that we had in the classroom. It'll be the trips that we went on. It'll be the time somebody came in and took us somewhere and did something different. And that's because it's much more multisensory. We've got something different happening, and outdoor learning really does that. If we can connect that to a learning outcome, then that's a really great way of it, making that memory stay there and that learning input. The next one, thanks. So in terms of teachers, what can that look like? And sometimes I think we overcomplicate outdoor learning. We think we've got to go and do a course, we've got to go and do something. Actually, just looking at the pupils in front of us and what we can offer them in terms of personalisation and choice is really important. You know, if I was just to take my children out and only ever do adventure, you know, the adventure stuff with them, there'll be something that really doesn't rock their boat. So we should have a broad range of different experiences that we can offer. So yes, the outward bound and the residential experiences through nature, through adventure, and then through the nature, looking at field studies and, you know, visiting places that have got really great, rich natural environments. And the same with sustainability, looking at environmental awareness, eco schools, the sustainable development goals. How does this all relate? And then the curriculum, actually just doing maths outside and literacy outside and science and technology. And in terms of challenge and enjoyment, it's really helpful to think about that variety of place and the place pedagogy, starting in the school ground, accessing local green spaces, moving on to the wider community and urban spaces and rural spaces, as well as national and international spaces. And that helps children have a real understanding about where they fit in the world as well. Another valuable added bonus.
Yep, Natalie, I'm just wondering if sound's coming and going just a little bit. I hope it's okay for folks on the call. If people can pop into the chat, that would be really appreciated. Natalie, we don't want to miss anything of what you're saying. So just if folk can see into the chat, that would be really appreciated.
No problem. I'll try and talk a bit clearer as well. Sorry. And then, of course, there's the relevance. And, you know, so much of the learning we can be doing can be really relevant to the children. I'm obviously in a very different context to what I was in East Ayrshire, and the beach is our playground. You know, it's just right in front of us. So we're looking at things that make that relevant. So in your own environment, could be looking at environmental signage. Sorry, Mary, could we click on and looking at the reading for purpose, actually going out into the environment and looking for those opportunities to look for signage, things like that. And the vocabulary, giving them opportunity in a natural environment, there's much greater opportunity for discussing it and understanding it, and also extending the learning environment. So often we think of, or children think of learning as only taking place in the classroom, and having that opportunity to have a discussion about something that they then might find or come across when they're walking with their parents or when they're out with their friends. So an example of that might be identifying right angles on the fences all the way to and from school. Actually, then they can walk with mum and dad and see that, you know, there's another right angle, there's another right angle. So it's extended the learning opportunities. And then things like shape, that's an obvious one. It's absolutely everywhere. Again, making that meaningful. One of my drums I harp on about is, why do children not know what cylinders are when we've got lampposts on pretty much every street? You know, if every time we took the children out, we're tapping the lamppost and saying cylinder, how quickly would every single P1 in the country know what a cylinder was? So it's just about making it much more relevant to them. And then the learning spaces. So as a head teacher, having a look and making sure that there's a really nice variety of learning opportunities, spaces in their playground and in their immediate vicinity. It's not always possible to get out beyond the playground, but we should be doing that. But what can we do within the playground? So growing areas, and then there's so much we can link to that. Actually, really using it and engaging in it, and the planting, food production, from field to fork, and the science outcomes that are involved in that, and that links nicely and beautifully into the wildlife areas. So much of our science curriculum can be taught actually in a wildlife area. We are absolutely blessed. We've got a gorgeous little space. This is actually the children. The photo there is the children planting trees earlier this year With the landowner he put a new fence up and he extended it by another 2 meters. So we've just planted some new trees in there. It's just perfect. There's a little pond and we get newts and it's full of life. It's wonderful. And then different textures. So actually we're thinking about different types of materials that are in the playground, and that leads itself really beautifully to a lot of technology curriculum around materials and science materials. Topography, have we got those challenging spaces? Have we got hills? Have we got dips? Have we got some little hidey hole spaces? But actually then how does that relate to geography and maths? And then we're looking at physical activity challenge as well. So all of these things can really help. Loose parts, there's lots done about loose parts recently, and that's really great, but it does a massive amount of that creativity and higher order thinking in children, and that promotion of it, encouraging their imagination. And seating areas, quite often we just put seats in rows. Can we think about actually being a bit more creative with that? We've literally just got chopped up logs that the children constantly moving around, but it actually allows for that mindfulness, but also in terms of communication and our listening and talking for our literacy lessons as well. So a lot of our reading lessons take place outside, wind or rain, and they're always out there. It's brilliant. And then finally, animals. Actually having the responsibility of them, and that community ethos, and that can be things that we actually keep, but also just even talking about and sharing the animals that the children live in, look after. So sorry, in a rural location we've obviously got a lot of those kind of animals, things kicking around, and children desperate to share it, but actually making that part of the community. We talk about it, everybody knows about it, and they share their thoughts and their experiences with us. Jumping on. So what can a teacher do right now? I would say to every teacher, just go out there and have a look in your space. Have a look, take a right good wander around. What can you see? Maths. Can you see any stations of the times tables on the windows, for example, on structures? Time and time again, we spot this. There actually is number and maths all around us. Start to identify that and think about it. For children in that playground all the time, and you've identified how long a meter is or how far 10 meters is, and we can have that as a space they keep going back to, seeing that same distance. That concept of measurement becomes much more real because they're seeing it every day, and that's what we kind of hope with all of these things, that they're seeing it all the time. And the science, asking those questions, because actually one that jumped out at me the other day was why does the moss grow here? A big patch of moss in one part of the playground but not in another. Getting children to ask that really inquiring questions and starting to poke them into that thinking a little bit deeper and other reasons. That's the science outcomes just there. Technology, why have these structures, these materials been used for this particular structure? And that can be a really good one, in actually terms of children unpacking why we are using what materials. It ties in really nicely again with our sustainability. Is it sustainable? Can we keep using plastic dustbins, or should we be looking for an alternative, etc.? So it's all there. Literacy, using the artifacts around to create word walls. There's so many things that you can get from the children just by going in the playground and asking them to pick something up and then describing it and looking at the adjectives that they can find of that, taking that back inside. That in itself is a really powerful thing, because the children remember that when they first heard that word, or when they first used that word, and then they can put it into their stories, and it makes it much more real. And health and wellbeing in PE, lots of things you can do with PE in the playground, and the health and well-being in terms of mindfulness, as we've already spoken about, but even just being in that natural space and using it for physical activity, and encouraging the children to see that as something that they can do every playtime. So you can make up a really simple assault course, and actually you'll find that the children are then doing it every break time, because they actually really enjoy doing that, challenging each other to get over things and under things. And then social studies, that's a nice easy one, just looking at the age of things straight away, putting things in timelines, asking them when who they thought built this particular school, or who put that attachment on, or that extension onto the building, etc., etc. All around. And so I would just say, before I finalise, small steps. Take people along the journey. Don't just tell them they've got to go outdoors and then expect them just to get on with it. Start off really simple, and something nice and simple that we found was at the start of the day, when they're bringing the children in from the school, ask them to bring something in. Go take a few minutes, go around there, run around the school playground. What can you bring in, and what materials are out there? And some schools are lucky, they've got twigs and leaves and all sorts, and they can then start to analyse what they are or use them for bar graphs. And other schools, it's maybe the litter. Well, actually then they can start the discussion about how much litter's in the playground and what they could do about it. They could make, again, bar charts, data graphs, things like that. And then taking it back inside. So it's that starting off small, little things they can do. Meeting the pupils outside is another really easy way of doing it. So before lunch or break and staying out for that extra 15 minutes. Or using the classroom, using the journey to and from the classroom as well. Quite often we think of that as kind of wasted time, going from the classroom, okay, everybody get your jackets on, let's go. And then we all wander along the corridor and we maybe go down the stairs or that outside. We've maybe lost 2 or 3 minutes. Actually, between those spaces, what could we be doing? We could be looking for letters on the walls, we could be looking at displays, we could be counting numbers, we could be doing all sorts of things, identifying patterns or looking for right angles. Then when we're outside, make them routine and expected. Let the children know this is what happens, this is where we go, this is our boundaries, this is our expectations, this is what learning looks like outdoors. And it looks different from when it's playtime, and that's okay. But don't be restricted. I'm doing a course just now and it's talking a lot about the critical reflections on things that we do in school, why we do them. We've actually got a real opportunity when we go outside to start thinking about what does this classroom look like for me. So as a practitioner, as a teacher, that could be really empowering. It's okay that the children are maybe wobbling backwards and forwards. In actual fact, that's good because they're now using more muscles, which is making them healthier. We want that physical activity to be happening. So it's okay that children are not all standing in a line looking at you, waiting to do what they're meant to be doing. And so you can sort of shape those boundaries, those expectations, more to suit what the learner is going to learn best in that environment with. And then making sure everybody's comfortable. The clothing thing, it comes back time and time again. We all live in this country. We just need to put on the clothes and get on with it. And up here more than ever, it is just put on the jackets and the children come in and that's where we are. That's what we do. And it has to just become the norm. We need to start normalising that behaviour about what, the expectations of the weather. Put the clothes on, get out there and just get on with it. And we've got them, there's so many grants, lots and lots of places do grants for that, but also just asking family members to families to send in old clothes that children have grown out of and things like that. So making sure children are comfortable, and then finally just being flexible, be responsive to the children. So I've just popped up that link there. It's absolutely brilliant. It's got everything on it. It's learning resources that Education Scotland put together. All of the policies, guidance, anything you might need, it's all in that link there. So go look it out and share anything. That's me.
Thank you so much, Natalie, for sharing your wealth of knowledge, experience, and just kind of practical tips about how, if people are new to outdoor learning, how they can take it forward and take small steps and how it matches across the curriculum. And I suppose what would be really helpful for people to know now that you've finished speaking is actually that you've made that move up to the Highlands during COVID times, and you've taken the schools and the nurseries that you're working with and leading forward in their outdoor learning journey, as well as everything else at the moment. So thank you, huge thank you from us to you. And we will move forward on to our last speaker, and Mark's going to introduce the next speaker to us. So thanks, Mark, and thanks, Natalie.
Yeah, thanks very much, Natalie and Gwyneth. And just before I introduce Kate from the Highland, just to say, Gwyneth and Natalie have taken part in a lot of our outdoor learning webinars, all of which have been recorded on Education Scotland's YouTube channel. I'll just put that in the link at the moment. So if you want to find out a bit more for a bit longer time, you can check that out, which does segue me into Kate Samuel from Highland Secondary, because I have pretty much got her to promise that she'll do a webinar on Highland's approach a wee bit longer after COP26. So great to have you with us, Kate. And I think it's really important to reflect on secondary schools within outdoor learning. That is something that we often hear about as primary and early years are doing so much great work, but there's fantastic work happening in secondary schools as well. And I've been really inspired by the work that's been going on in Highland. So I'm really excited to let everyone hear. Yeah, so over to you.
Oh, thank you, Mark. Actually, listening to what Natalie had to say there, I think I want to recourse and become a primary teacher because there's so many brilliant ideas in amongst that. Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. I was asked to talk to you today really on the back of the work we do to deliver the John Muir Awards in Highland Secondary. And we've been delivering the John Muir Award at discovery level for a number of years now, and delivered it to our entire S1 cohort during our Idea Week in May. As a city centre school, we unfortunately don't have very much green space in our school grounds, but we are very lucky to have about 4 or 5 small parks within about 5-minute walking distance, and it's about a 20-minute bus journey to Pollock Park in Glasgow South Side. that we use not just for the John Muir Awards, for our orienteering. We use the stag orienteering routes and for our invasive species activities, but also for our national 4-5 class biology field trips. As I've said, the award is delivered to our S1 group usually in May, and includes some of those listed on the slides there. It kind of changes and is refreshed each year depending on what staff we have involved in the week, but it's always built around the Sustainable Development Goals. Can I have the next slide, please? Unfortunately for our S1 group in 2020, we weren't in school to do this activity in May, so I made a decision to deliver the award as part of our COVID recovery programme to our then S2s in May of this year. We decided to have a freshwater theme and link it to Sustainable Development Goal 6, clean water and sanitation, and the UNCRC articles, the right to health, education and play. We started off with Plan A and we had Plan B, and I think by the time the week came round we were on about Plan G or H or somewhere even further down the alphabet. One of the plans that we had was to go down to Helensburgh or Cardross, or Cardross, depending where you're from, to do a beach clean. A lot of the litter that ends up in those beaches has actually come down the Clyde from Glasgow, and we were using the upstream battle from Keep Scotland Beautiful, the citizen science resources. Unfortunately, when the rest of Scotland went into level 2 COVID restriction, we remained in level 3, so we were unable to travel with our local authority. So we sort of changed it around, ended up going down to Kelvingrove Park, and I was worried that it wouldn't have the same value or have the same level of as enjoyment for the young people and for the staff as well, who were hoping they were getting a wee beach trip. But it was really enjoyed by both staff and the young people, I think partly because of the gorgeous weather as well. And it wasn't just the big activities like the upstream battle activities, but some of the smaller things, like in the photos there, the longest daisy chain, or making tunes out of some of the things that we find in the environment in the park. It was some of those things that actually the young people seemed to enjoy the most. They were really got into it, and they were just so, you could see them just being so relaxed and just enjoying being in a park, being with their friends and doing some structured activities. The other pictures there, we obviously took them kayaking as well, and that was part of a lesson built around the geography and history of the rivers and canals in Glasgow as an industrial city, and how the canals really are now used mostly for leisure. So we managed to get into Pinkston Water Basin up in the Maryhill Canal, and the staff got involved as well. I did have a wee shot at kayaking. I couldn't go anywhere apart from sideways most of the time, but the young people just had an absolute ball. At the end of it, we all got to jump in, and that change from being stuck in four walls, as we're doing now, talking to whoever it is that is out there, to actually just being able to jump in the water and have so much fun and play so many games was literally pretty refreshing. For those of you who are not really familiar with the John Muir Awards, there's 4 elements to it, and the last one being that the young people have to share their experience. This is a great opportunity for me to kind of assess their learning and to get a wee bit of feedback on how the week has been. What was the biggest thing that was apparent both during the week and from the feedback was what the young people really appreciated was being outside and just being able to have that structured activity with their friends. I think with so many of our young people and staff at that time, and still being really anxious about being indoors in large groups, the relief and relaxation was so visible when we shifted to learning outside that, you know, you could just see the relief in everybody of being able to do that. Can I have the next slide, please? As I mentioned already, we also take our National 4 and 5 biology classes out to Pollock Park to do our field trips, where we do the 3 sampling activities or investigations that are mentioned on the screen there. The staff at the park are great. We've been using them for years. They're so accommodating. Mel, the girl who manages the cattle, allows us access to some of the fields, so we can go in and we do quadrats and sweep netting and sample the biodiversity in the managed grazed field in comparison to an intensively grazed field, and seeing the impact that can have on biodiversity. One of the other ones that we do, we get to go into the river and we do kick sampling to measure the level of pollution in the river, depending on what invertebrate species that we find there. It's always great fun. Somebody always ends up falling in and getting soaked, but it's, you know, there's never been a complaint yet. Everybody just has a ball, and a lot of the time we find little fish. In the top picture there, it actually looks like it's got legs, but that is a fish that they're holding there. I think it's just sticks that make it look like it's got legs. But the young people just have a ball, and the staff really enjoy doing it, and it's the same staff that want to come back each year because it is just really, really good fun. Next slide, please. As I mentioned before, we take these groups out every year, and a couple of weeks ago we took the S4 out to do these activities, but unfortunately we weren't able to do the kick sampling this year, so we decided to do a photography challenge instead. One of the groups set off into the walled gardens in the park to do the photography challenge. I noticed this group of boys sort of beelining for the bushes and the trees, and knowing the park quite well, I was able to kind of herd them off. But before I got to them, before they could really see me and I could see them, I could hear them in the bushes, and rather than being naughty like I expected, they were actually climbing the trees and playing Indiana Jones, which was just to see fourth-year boys being in a woodland environment and actually just playing and using their imagination and having fun. I just had to let them get on with it for a little while, and it just, you know, they had a real ball doing it. When eventually I did have to pull them back in, and we went down into the walled gardens to do the photography challenge, I thought they would be in a bit of a huff and not want to do it, but again they got so engaged and so involved in it. And I think it's because their cameras are so good that they really wanted to get the detail in all the pictures, and a couple of the boys became so obsessed with the bees with their wee full pollen pockets and their back legs that they were so obsessed with trying to get pictures. I found it really difficult to round them up to get them back on the bus at the end of the day. So being out in that different environment in parks and woodlands and just somewhere outdoors, you can never really predict how young people react, and I think I'm always quite pleasantly surprised, but perhaps it's just because I shouldn't be so suspicious in the first place. Can we have the next slide, please? Biology obviously lends itself to outdoor learning with the field trips, so I just wanted to share on this slide a couple of other examples from some of my colleagues. Geography, physics and photography were the three that I thought I'd put in here. There are so many more examples. Geocaching, one of my geographer colleagues introduced me to geocaching. I did it in the summer last year with my wee boy, and it's basically like a global treasure hunt. We download the app, and she uses it to practice map reading skills with her geography classes, and she actually encourages the young people to make a geocache themselves, and then they can see how many people go back to visit it, and the young people really enjoy it. It's really, really good fun. The physics one, launching rockets, clearly isn't an indoor activity, but the road safety activity, we went out and quite a busy road outside our school. They, using speed distance time, they found the average speed of the cars going down Clarence Drive, and then worked out the stopping distance between when it was both wet and dry conditions, and did a road safety campaign in the back of that, and it was actually a real eye-opener as well. But like Natalie was saying, going out and doing that, really putting that real life experience into practice and what is actually going on outside our school right now was really, really important and really inspiring. Photography, I quite often sit and stare out the window when I'm supposed to be marking at the higher photography class that just seem to meander around the playground, and they just look so relaxed and so calm, and it's very similar to the photography that we did at Pollock Park. It's just that idea that sometimes, you know, it's great to be active and outdoors, but sometimes we actually need to stop and take time just to observe. Our lives are a constant sensory overload, particularly with the teenagers, and it's just so important that we give young people the opportunity just to stop and observe, take notice of their environment and really appreciate what's going on around them. I think it's really important that we do that if we really expect our young people to take responsibility for their environment and to really appreciate our local community. Next slide, please. This is the last thing I really want to talk to you about, and I know we're conscious of time. I'll try and get through this as quickly as possible. This was a food growing project that was started in 2018. We got funding initially from STEM Glasgow, and then again last year from Keep Scotland Beautiful. As I've mentioned, we really don't have any green space in school at all. So we got funding to get some planters put in, these seated planters. We got 4 initially. of the planters there in the picture, and 4 half whiskey barrels that we put into the school playground. And my eco group grew plants from seeds over the summer of 2019. When we came back after in August 2019, they harvested the food that had grown. It was just in those 4 planters and the 4 whiskey barrels. Can I have the next slide, please? We actually grew enough food to make all of these dishes, and in quantities enough to, well, the first time we made the pakora, we ate all the pakora, so we had to make more. But we made enough food and all of these things in enough quantity that the young people were able to invite a friend or a family member in. And we had a big sort of harvest event at the end of it. And I think out of everything in my career that I've done, this is one of the projects that I've enjoyed the most. We got more funding, we've got more planters, and we want to start sort of building that out into a community food growing project. So hopefully, pardon the pun, that is going to continue to grow. The area that the planters were put into, sorry, next slide please, has actually been invaluable in the past 18 months. In August 2020, prior to the return of school, Pastoral Care had highlighted a number of young people that there was a real concern due to high levels of anxiety that those young people would not return to school in August. We made a decision to invite them into the playground in the weeks in the run up to school. Really, we asked them to come in with a family member or a friend to help them with the stress of it. Somebody actually brought their dog as well, but to come in and take a planter or a barrel each to clear it out. They obviously had nothing done to them since March. We brought in some plants, and each sort of young person with their family or their friends worked on that area, and it gave us an opportunity to chat to those young people. And what was really important there was that there was something about being active and being busy when we started to discuss these difficult situations that made it much easier for that conversation to flow. And I don't know whether it's a distraction of being not being looked at or not having to make eye contact, or it being almost a similar effect as a stress ball. But it was so effective that we're now using that area as a safe space for our young people to go out and have a chat with our youth worker or our pastoral care teachers when they're maybe feeling a wee bit overwhelmed. And we are hoping to further develop that area to have a covered seating area as well, to continue to use that regardless of the weather. Next slide, please. 2 minutes left. I wanted to get some videos of the young people sharing an experience, but we're just so restricted with time. These were some of the exit pass words that the young people came up with to try and describe why they enjoyed all of these activities so much. And weirdly, they find it quite difficult to come up with words, because they know they really enjoy it, but they just couldn't figure out why. They couldn't put the finger on why. And it's not because they are emotionally illiterate, they're most definitely not. But I think just because it's such actually a human instinct to be out and to be building and just getting amongst stuff and just getting a bit grubby, and we forget that now, and that is what is so enjoyable about it. And that whole movement away from social media, from being inside and from being the stress, and just relaxing and just enjoying it. For me, that's what outdoor learning is all about. I'm obviously very, very passionate about it. We've got so many other things that I could talk to you about today, and I just don't have time. But thank you so much for listening to my very, very fast whistle-stop tour of what we've been doing. My last slide, I'm hoping, is a quote. Yes, thank you. But thank you for listening to everything we've had to say today.
I think I'd just speak on everyone's behalf, Kate. That was absolutely fantastic. Really, really inspiring. Wonderful to see outdoor in the nature, and Pollock, place very close to my heart. But also, I think the family event and the impact of gardening and mental health is really, really strong and really inspiring. So I'm really looking forward to getting across the city to see it in action. So many thanks to you, Kate. We are pretty much bang on 1:45, so we don't really have any time, unfortunately, for questions. However, if you do want, we can keep the chat looking anyway. And if you do want to ask any questions or anything, just drop us a little line. That would be great. I'm just going to share one thing, hopefully, see if this works. I did actually just do a word cloud there when we were doing the 3 words, if you like. So while we're doing that, I've just done that sort of live. So hopefully you can see that there. And I do think there's some interesting stuff that's coming out in there. So fun, fantastic. But we're seeing well-being, really appropriate to what Kate was just talking about there. And we're seeing nature and creativity and inspiring and curiosity. So it's probably the most inspiring area of work, I think, that we can get engaged with. So just like to thank all our speakers today. I also have put in a Wakelet link in the chat there. We're collating lots and lots of resources from our partners. We've heard lots about our partners today, and keep an eye out for some of the other webinars and other training opportunities that we'll be providing on outdoor learning. So I hope you have a great day, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, folk. Have a great rest of Scottish Learning Festival. Really enjoyed today's session. Thank you.